Hello and welcome to Zombardment versus RECTOR Toolbox. But before we get into the games, please do let me know if you like these videos or not, and if you have any feedback or suggestions of how to make them better, I would really appreciate that, because usually I do just make deck techs and I'm quite new to making gameplay. If you would like to see the deck tech for the deck I'm playing, you can check it out on my channel. It is a little bit of a niche deck. It's a zombie deck that has a value engine with sacrifice effects. So we can use things like Goblin Sharpshooter or Goblin Bombardment to just get some extra value out of all of our zombie recursion. So in game one, I start with a Carrion Feeder. So this is a zombie that can sack stuff to get bigger. And in this video, I have actually cut out a lot of the kind of sitting around waiting where people are thinking or shuffling. And I've also sped the video up so it's a little bit faster than regular speed. So please do let me know what you think about this. It really does help me make these videos better. And thank you so much to everyone who comments. So yeah, attacking for one and then playing a Shepherd of Rot. So this zombie is really good because it can shoot each player for the amount of zombies in play. It's also actually a loss of life, so it gets around annoying things like solitary confinement. And so having said that, opponent decides to start with a wall. So this is very good against Carrion Feeder, for now anyway, and also a swords on the Shepherd. So obviously I sack it to make my Carrion Feeder bigger, so I don't lose 100% value there, but still can't attack through that wall. So I think for a little bit about exactly how to play out my turn, and I end up sacking my thing. So this is where I cut out the shuffling and searching part. I do just think it makes the videos flow a bit better, and I plan on keep doing that unless people really don't like it. I don't think you necessarily need to see me shuffling the deck or searching for a basic. So I attack just because I can. Obviously opponent blocks there. I think you just have to call their bluff. You never know, some people might just take the damage. And then I play Goblin Bombardment and kill the birds. So from the look of his deck, I definitely think Carrion Feeder is much better than Carnophage. I don't think I'm going to be needing to block from the looks of the wall and Bird's Paradise. So floating some mana there and playing a mana war, bouncing my guy back to hand. I'm definitely not going to sack that to Goblin Bombardment. It's just really not necessary to deal 1 damage at this point. Yeah, and then I go for a Rotlung Reanimator, really good with Goblin Bombardment, especially against a deck like his that has lots of smaller creatures. So you can see here there's another birds, and opponent thinking for a while, and that's because his deck does seem to have a lot of 1 toughness creatures. He plays a Waterfront Bouncer. So when I see Waterfront Bouncer, I just assume this is some kind of combo deck. I don't think just a regular deck would play that card, and I just assume he really wants to put cards in the graveyard somehow. So I play a Withered Wretch, I just exile the birds. So that'll be useful later in case I draw a Tombstone Stairwell. And then I sack the Cleric Zombie to kill the Bouncer. So I really don't want to give him any option to discard. I definitely should have sacked another zombie to kill the birds, but I just didn't. I was going for max value and max greed, I guess. We'll see in a second. This really comes back to bite me. So yeah, Academy Rector. So that definitely wouldn't have been in play if I'd killed the birds, because opponent didn't draw another land. But you never know, you know, maybe he would have just drawn a land anyway. I'm not sure. I still think it was right to kill the bird though, especially as I essentially have a free shot with Rotlung Reanimator. And so here I play Cabal Therapy. I spend a while thinking about what to name, trying to think of anything that lets him sacrifice his creature. In the end, I name one of those, maybe Innocent Blood or maybe Natural Order, because I think you can sack any creature to it. And I see his hand that has a survival in it. So now I know he's definitely like some kind of graveyard-based combo. I've seen the Rector, so it's definitely a combo deck. And you know, straight away I'm flashing that Therapy back to get rid of that survival. So in the end, I decided to sack the Carrion Feeder because I just think it's a less useful creature. I'll get more and more value as the game goes on from my Rotlung as I can draw more clerics. So Hypnox is that black card in his hand. It's a huge creature that can exile people's hands, and it's actually part of a graveyard based combo. So our opponents kind of put 2 combos in this deck, it seems. So that right now, that card essentially does nothing. It's like a dead card. So yeah, Sharpshooter coming down. This is going to be really, really useful, especially with Goblin Bombardment. So opponent taps 5 here, and he actually told me afterwards this was a Deranged Hermit, which of course is a really good card, but not when your opponent just played a Goblin Sharpshooter. So you can see him thinking about this for a while, and then he just decides, no, this is actually a really bad idea because Goblin Sharpshooter is just going to gun them all down. Definitely not going to block Academy Rector. Maybe he feels like he's got quite a defensive position, but as you can see, this deck can put a lot of damage out of nowhere. And actually, I realized that I can kill all of his stuff, so I shoot his Mana War for 1 point of damage. Then I use a Terminate to kill his wall, which untaps my Sharpshooter and then can kill the Mana War. So you can see that just in 1 turn I killed all his blockers, and yeah, just attack for 4. I definitely wouldn't have been able to do this if the Rector had stayed back. So I can still attack into the Rector because of Goblin Bombardment. It's really, really good because if he blocks a creature, I can sack it before damage, meaning his Rector won't die and give him that trigger. I'm essentially assuming at this point of the game, if the Rector dies, he's going to get something that just wins on the spot. Usually that's how these decks work. It'll either be something that wins on the spot or something that just puts him so far ahead. I'm not sure what he has in hand. I know he has Hypnox, which costs loads of mana, and essentially now it's just a dead card. I know he's got the Deranged Hermit because he told me, but I didn't know at the time. Now that I've drawn Withered Wretch, this is actually lethal. So I thought about it before, but it was just short of killing him. Now I can attack. He goes to block, but before damage, I can sack stuff to shoot him, and his Rector won't die. Also, my life total, I moved my phone while I was explaining this. That will go back to normal in a second, so don't worry about that. So yeah, before damage, I sack my Withered Wretch to get another token, then sack the creature he blocks, and then just go off and shoot for absolutely loads of damage. My creature that wasn't blocked still deals combat damage, and yeah, here's the combo. So it's quite fun when this actually goes off. So for sideboarding, I brought in the extra Cabal Therapy. I think that one just goes without saying against a combo deck. We just absolutely need that. And 3 copies of Dystopia, which make them sack a green or white permanent in their upkeep. There's no real worry of them sacking Rector to this, because if they have a Rector in play, I just won't play it. And if they don't have a Rector and I have Dystopia, then they play the Rector, I can just not pay the upkeep cost, sack the Dystopia. There'll never be an opportunity for them to sack the Rector to it. So I don't really need to worry about that, but it's extremely good against all of his other stuff, like survivals, birds, walls, all that kind of stuff. And for sideboarding out, I don't fully remember how I sideboarded out. I think I took out 2 copies of Tombstone Stairwell because his deck is very good at filling its own graveyard and it's a little slow. And I think I took out 2 Carrion Feeders because they're just not so good against that wall. But I really can't remember. And going into game 2, opponent has a good start with a turn 1 birds again. Again, don't worry about my life total. I recognize that I move my phone and I move it back in a second. So don't worry. I also have a decent start with a turn 1 Carnophage. Unfortunately, I didn't have a discard spell for his survival. But luckily, it seems like he doesn't have a survival, because if he had one, you'd probably play it straight away. So yeah, wall, very good against my aggressive creatures. I think I decided not to pay, but I just forgot. So sometimes when I'm playing this deck, I actually say it and just don't do it, because it's not that often in Magic where you have cards like that. It's just a kind of inbuilt thing to untap all your stuff, and then, yeah. So then comes Shepherd of Rot again. This card is just absolutely great against combo because it can just put huge amounts of damage down really quickly. I'm also very lucky because he hasn't had any of his combo pieces. He's got more of a value engine start with things like Mana War and the Wall. So here I draw a fetch land, and yeah, again, I just cut all of the shuffling out. I don't think it really needs to be in here. I think it's much more fun to just watch the video as the actual plays happen rather than waiting ages for me to shuffle my deck. So here comes Goblin Sharpshooter. This card's incredible in this matchup, as we saw last time. And again, now I am actually paying to leave my Carnophage untapped because he can attack me for 2 otherwise. So I decided to start my turn off by just shooting the bird. It seems like the obvious play, but he has this card. I can't remember the name of it. I think it's like Swiftfoot Panther or something. That lets him return a green or white creature to his hand when he plays it. It's not a may, it's a must actually. Then I think for a while play another Carnophage and Dystopia. So Dystopia is going to be absolutely brutal here, as we'll see in a second. So he untaps and has to sacrifice something. A green or white permanent, so he has 2. So I'm definitely going to get good value out of this Dystopia. And the Wall, so that untaps my Sharpshooter, which is super nice. So at this point of the matchup, I feel pretty far ahead, especially with Dystopia. It's, you know, it's quite difficult to deal with. Even something like a Survival, it probably won't do that much considering how many cards he's got in hand. He will be able to use it a few times, but just to chain stuff together. And yeah, Bombardment, I'm just kind of lining up the pieces here. Another Shepherd of Rot. So I'm going to absolutely go off next turn, as we'll see in a second. So opponent has to sack the Panther. In response, I shoot the Mana War for 1. Then when it dies, it untaps my shooter, so I can shoot the Mana War for 2, and then that will die, untapping my Sharpshooter. So I feel really, really confident here because, you know, I have a Dystopia against an empty board. It really stops him from playing a lot of his stuff. Three activations off of Survival is not nothing though, you know, definitely that, and now it would be 4, that really can go a long way. So yeah, there is still a possibility, although luckily with my Bombardment it means I have a bit of interaction. So here I'm taking a lot of damage. I just think it's totally worth keeping Dystopia in play. And yeah, Cabal Therapy, naming birds because I know that card. And I just see lands and a ground seal, which is not going to do anything in this matchup because I don't have any graveyard interaction out yet. So now, of course, like he's just drawn a lot of lands, so I feel very far ahead here. Perhaps his draws were quite unlucky because, you know, he never had the crazy nuts draw of turn 2 Survival into something against me. So I think I was quite lucky in this matchup. And the reason I choose to attack with the zombie here instead of use its ability is because I'm on quite low life and I want to keep the Dystopia around just in case. I spend a bit of time trying to figure out if I can kill him, but I can't. So yeah. Then I respond to the Wall dying by shooting him for 1. So Ground Seal just to draw a card. And Wall just to draw a card. At this point I think I've pretty much won, because with the mana that he has, I don't think he can combo out, and I've got a lot of damage on the board. So I actually do pay for the Dystopia. I'm not sure why. I don't think I need to. I've actually got lethal on board. So I'm thinking about this because I don't want to mess it up. And I'm not sure if opponent just concedes. I can't really remember. Yeah, so as I tap my lands to do something, opponent just concedes. And yeah, Zombardment 2-0, so thank you for watching and see you next time.